Welcome back to my part 2 for Raleigh Q&A. I'm going to be answering 3 more questions that I often get as a realtor here in Raleigh. And this is going to include new construction, Airbnbs, and how much cash you should prepare before starting the home buying process. For those that don't know me, I'm Domingo with eXp Realty. I do buyer's guides and neighborhood tours for people like you who are interested in moving to this area. So with that, let's go and get started. This is definitely one of the most popular questions with Raleigh, which is, should I buy a new construction? Part of this is because so many companies are moving to establish themselves in the triangle that a bunch of suburbs are popping up now. Even if you're not in the suburbs, then a lot of luxury homes are being built. And the thing about this is that the definitive answer is, it just depends. It's pros and cons. So let's talk about that a little bit. You're gonna have some of the latest design features, construction materials, and some additional warranties that come with a new build that you just wouldn't get otherwise. In theory, because it's also new, the longevity of the home is also longer. But really, outside of those specific reasons, my stance on this is it doesn't really matter. It's more important from my perspective that you find a home with the features that match your needs. For example, if you have kids or you homeschool or you need to be close to a job. And regardless of whether it's new construction or not, you should always be thoroughly inspecting. Not all new construction is equal. Especially in some of these mass-produced neighborhoods, you could find some sloppy workmanship. And one thing to consider is, even if you're not buying a new construction home, the majority of the things that I mentioned as a pro, you could still achieve just by renovating your home. So ultimately, just see if it feels right. And sort of a case in point is I had a set of clients that were relocating from Texas who explicitly said, we're looking for a home that's not new construction, because they bought a new construction home in Texas and it was just this sort of like manufactured feel to it. There's no trees, everything's condensed. Now, to be fair, this isn't going to be true for all new construction homes. For them specifically, we helped them find a home that had a decent lawn, trees integrated in the lot, and a charming architectural style. So, in conclusion, it doesn't really matter if you go new construction or not, just pick the home that resonates with you. All right, so this next question is a little bit more niche, but I get this because I'm also an investor myself, which is something along the lines of, are Airbnbs allowed, or would you recommend it, or how do they perform in Raleigh? Now, I personally have across 2 different cities, a short-term rental, mid-term rental, and a long-term rental. So I have the full perspective on this. Now, the short answer to the original question of, is it even allowed? The answer is yes. You require a permit per year to lease anything for compensation that is 30 days or less. That's how they define a short-term rental. And that permit is roughly $230. And they have a permit portal that outlines all the stipulations to this. But the long story short is you just need to submit an application and then an owner's acknowledgement. It's called affidavit, however you say that word. But all right, so that's really the hard information up front you need to actually execute that decision if that's where you want to go. So I'll take a step back and just walk you through my situation, because I actually explicitly bought a duplex in order to house hack the top unit as a short-term rental, and I've since decided to pivot a little bit. I think this information will be valuable for you if you don't already have a portfolio, and so this concept is just new to you. But for me, I've been running my short-term rental for just about a year now. You need to understand that holding costs plus cleaner costs oftentimes make the margin incredibly small. And sometimes you're not even making money, you're just subsidizing your mortgage. Therefore, I'm pivoting to a midterm rental, which is not defined by any zoning by the city, but generally speaking, it's just longer than 30 days. Most oftentimes a month to month, but not a traditional 12-month or 18-month lease. This way, you're factoring the holding costs and counterbalancing that by lowering your expenses on cleaners. So that's a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to go down that route because I feel that perspective is going to be helpful if you're seriously considering this. Most of the investment that I see being done in Raleigh right now is either flipping or new construction. And that's largely just due to the holding costs. And even those investment approaches aren't perfect, because if your final house is a little bit sloppy, or let's say it hits the market at an awkward time, that means that your month-to-month holding costs are significantly high even on a new build. So make of all of this what you will and choose your own adventure. And that's just my perspective on the whole Airbnb, short-term rental, or just investment perspective altogether. So the last question that we're going to cover is, how much cash should I prepare? Now, obviously this depends on your purchase price. The shortest way that I would qualify this is you need enough cash to make your due diligence fee, your earnest money deposit, and to pay for the inspections along the way, which roughly is going to cost $1,000. Depending on your price point, a competitive due diligence fee could be about $5,000, and a competitive earnest money deposit could be about $2,500. I would say this is for a home somewhere between the $450K to $650K price point, and it could fluctuate based on your competition. So in this example, the all-in cash that you're going to need is $8,500. But, because there's always a but, that doesn't include your down payment, and there are other closing costs. Now, Typically, a lender is happy to wrap the closing costs into the loan, which practically just means you don't need as much money to buy a home, but you do pay for that via your monthly mortgage payment. And then as far as down payments, you don't have to only just think of a conventional loan where it's 20% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, you could qualify for FHA at 3.5%. Then on the conventional side, there's even programs as low as 5% down. If you're okay with living in the more rural parts, then you could look at the USDA loan program as well, because that's 100% financing for loan to value. And then obviously VA loan, 100% loan to value. A lot of my initial clients were active duty soldiers or veterans, and so it was very common for me to see with those loan programs, people owe $0 at closing. And in one case, I even had a client get money back at closing, but they still had to pay the inspectors up front, and they still paid about $7,500 on due diligence fee and earnest money deposit. Really, the end-all be-all is the first step in buying a home anyways is get pre-approved for a loan. And as you identify homes that you want to put an offer in, you can always work with the loan officer to figure out how much cash to close you would end up needing if that's not already determined in a previous discussion you guys had. Those are all the questions for today's video. Again, this is part 2. I have part 1 on my channel, where I talk about interest rates for 2025, housing prices for 2025, and some affordable areas that you could look at. Next week is going to be another neighborhood tour format, which I haven't done since pre-December. If you want to see that kind of content, be sure to subscribe, ask any questions you want of me in the comments, and if it ends up being a super good question, I could also include that in a part 3 Q&A video. If you're looking to come to the area and you're thinking of spring and summer timeframe, the time to start planning is now, so definitely reach out and we're going to get you on the calendar and get a game plan going so that you hit the home buying process extra prepared. All right, with that, thanks, and I will see you next week.